Hello, welcome back to the Loud Lens. This is a specially requested episode, which was done via my Facebook group, the Loud Lens with Khandie. But anyway, I know this is going to trigger some people and maybe offer some areas of heated discussion. And the area I was asked to discuss is why can't some photographers just be told? So let's talk about what gets under this person's skin. They've asked for rain on this. I can kind of see why, but also I have to say it does kind of get under mine, especially after the episodes of today. The amateur photographers who cannot, under any circumstance, be told. You know the type, they buy a shiny camera from somewhere, they do a couple of shots for mates, and suddenly they're professional photographers. The minute you try to give them advice, which they ask for, by the way, I'm not here to say go give advice to anyone who doesn't, okay? They roll their eyes and tell you they know better already, or worse yet, just ignore you and continue to make the same mistakes, but continue to ask for the advice. This episode is not based, though, on hating amateurs. We all started somewhere, and I know I did, and I know I started dreadfully, and I know I still ask for advice from many great people out there. This is about a certain kind of arrogance, ignorance, and sometimes I'm going to say it's outright delusion that is flooding this industry. I'm going to say buckle up because this one's going to be heavy, blunt, and we're probably going to ruffle a few feathers because I've probably already done that already, my loves. All right. So let's just accept that this is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to be like, oh, for God's sake, Khandie, they're going to burn you at the stake. I'm aware. So let's just look at the lay of the land, all right, my darlings? I don't know where that came from. It's starting to sound like that crazy teacher from Harry Potter, the one that takes over Hogwarts. God, sorry, let me slurp my coffee. Still decaf, mate. I should tell you, I'm recording this at 4:30 in the morning. Why? Because I decided to get up then. And I'm ever so productive in the morning. And here I am recording it. And you'll probably hear my dog snoring. But let's go. The landscape. Photography itself has become more accessible than ever. Cameras are, I'm going to say this in inverted commas, affordable. Editing apps are everywhere. There's tutorials on YouTube. This is a great time to follow my YouTube, I would just say. And they're free. Everyone has a camera on their phone. Social media has convinced people that if you get a few likes, you're basically a pro because that dopamine hits. And you get things like, oh, my mate says I'm good. I shot my mate's wedding, blah, blah, blah. And somehow that equates to, I should start charging clients. Okay. Now, I don't have a problem with people having this beautiful friendship where they can sort of jump around and go, yes, I'm amazing. Everyone loves me. I'm going to start this as a business because I'll be honest, it's kind of how I started. I never intended to have a photography business. I just started posting pretty pictures. And next thing I know, people were like, hey, I'd like to book with you. Okay. I had no idea about contracts. I had no idea about anything. And if it hadn't been for people on the internet and my own due diligence and researching, I knew I was able to do this. But there are people out there who just don't know or refuse to know. Okay. So I am going to tell you a story about somebody who I interact with on a social media platform. This woman had taken a few pictures of her mate's baby. And it was just some really cute ones of the baby laid on a blanket. He said, oh my God, they're amazing. Now everyone coos, it's a baby. But the thing is, they weren't great shots. Okay. The lighting was haphazard, the focus wasn't sharp, the editing wasn't. Now editing is a personal choice. I need to just correct that. But even down to like the fact that there was fluff stuck to the baby's face, this kind of stuff, that everyone should remove, as far as I'm concerned. Baby acne, as they call it, in the milk spots. I hate calling it baby acne. Isn't that awful? But someone said it's called baby acne. Gross. Don't like that idea. Just baby spot, the milk spots, little white spots they get, right? Was, oh, you need to remove that. I'm like, kind of, some parents want to leave it in. Like, some people don't want this heavily edited. Anyway, this woman was adamant then. And because she's taking these pictures, she could take photographs of babies. And then I was like, oh, you probably need some training just because, A, babies are very delicate. Make sure you got your contracts, insurance, because this is babies, honey. And also, get some more experience. Don't just launch into it. Well, a couple of weeks later, she's back in the same group talking about how her client's really angry and she needs to have a refund, but she's already spent the money. And I wrote, I'm not the most proud to say this, see your first post, what I said, because this would have stopped this. And she said, what do you mean? Obviously, she didn't say it like that because it's typed and I'm just imagining in her head what it was. And I said, I told you to get some training. I told you to understand some business. And now you're coming back. You ignored all the advice. And this is babies. This is baby. You could have hurt that baby. So she put the baby in what's called the froggy position, which, if you don't know, is where the baby sort of appears in the photo to hold their head up with their hands underneath their chin. Except this is done in 2 shots. Everywhere tells you do it in at least 2 shots, okay? But this woman decided to try it and do it in 1 and it hadn't worked. Now, she's very lucky she didn't hurt that baby. I am not about that life. I don't like stuff like that. There are some great people who do baby training. I think it's absolutely scary that people want to do this with kids without any training, but obviously this person did. The mother of the child, her the shoot, was really angry and was like, "These aren't the shots I wanted." And she basically sent these pictures through that were like of high-end photographers, not at this photographer's level. And this photographer hadn't even gone, "Oh, I can't do this," had just proceeded, and they were terrible. Okay. Yes, it was a very beautiful baby. Downside is the photos were not. We have this problem. Okay. Another story I can share is a photographer here in Northampton who, and I'm just gonna say it. I'm not gonna say the name because I think that's harsh, but I'm gonna say what happened. Was in a Facebook group that I was in, which is a wedding one, and was advertising wedding photography and was posting it constantly. Maybe actually, I think they weren't in Northampton. I think they were just slightly out. Anyway, posting constantly, except the photos were really, really yellow, really, really grainy, and really out of focus. Okay, to the point where like the bride and groom her feet were in shot, but nothing else was. It was bad, and he kept posting and posting until someone said, "Mate, you're not going to get any bookings because your work needs to be sharper. We can't," and gave him some pointers. He blew up, right? Saying he'd been a photographer for ages, everyone loves his work, blah, 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 blah. And then he proceeded to share more of his work. He shared work that didn't belong to him. Now, we could go down the route of, that's people stealing work. But this is the idea that he didn't think we would even check that, okay? I want to say though, and this is the massive issue with this. Your mates are not your clients, okay? Unless they are paying full whack and not getting mates rates, and they're not doing it in a way they're like, "Oh, I need someone for a quick talk. Could you come and do it for me? Thanks, babes. I'll give you a coffee." That we don't need mates like that. I know it sounds really awful. Mates are people, if they can't afford to buy from you, that's not a problem, but they should hype you up, okay? If they like what you do, genuinely hype you up. Clients want results, okay? Mates just want to hang out with you. There's a massive bloody difference. Your mates, by the very nature of a relationship, will hype you. Your clients have no obligation to hype you unless they like what you're doing. Do not fall down the trap that because your mates like what you do, you're instantly great, okay? Now, that does bring me on to something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. I've discussed this a few times on my YouTube channel. I think I've done it a few times here on the podcast. To explain this in the most basic way, the less you know, the more confident you feel, okay? And the more you know, the less confident you feel, if that makes sense. So you get these people who are really outlandishly like, "I'm amazing, look at this," and posting all this work. And they're just full of it. And it's great. I love that energy. The problem is the work doesn't match that level of energy. And I know that's a real gatekeeper way to say this, but if you can't get something in focus, and it's not an intentional non-focused picture, because there are artists that do it that way, and you can see it's intentional, it's deliberate. I don't know why you thought a client would want to buy from you, okay? I don't know why you would have this confidence to do that. And the reason is because everyone is, we tell everybody you can do whatever you want. And yes, you can, except maybe operate brain surgery after you've watched one episode of Grey's Anatomy. But you can do a lot because you've decided to. We have this great world where we can go online and learn how to drill pilot holes, but also how to crack our neck safely. I say safely, obviously that's inverted commas because it is YouTube, and they don't gatekeep, they don't safeguard what goes up there for the most part medically. But you can do all this, all right? And photography is such a prime playground for this. People see an image and they go, "Right, that's it. I'm now a photographer." And you've taken a picture. But to be a photographer, to do that as your job is vastly different than taking pictures. Okay. And it's because, and I wonder if these people are so confident, it's because they don't know what they don't know. And so they live in this blissful ignorance, and they cannot be told for some parts, not everybody. But I'm gonna humble myself now and say when I thought I knew it all, okay? I went to Whitby years ago. I think I was still in the military then. I went to Whitby and I had I think it was a Pentax. And I was I was running around and I thought I was the dog's bollocks that portraits. Honestly, I was like, "Oh, check me out. I'm amazing." And I'm amazing, right? And I went to this grocery shop, this old time grocery, and the guy was there with his son. His son was a big goth, and the dad was like this jolly sort of greengrocer. There's the very, he had the tweedish jacket, he had the knitted vest top, he had the flat cap, big rosy cheeks. He was fantastic. And I took a picture of him and I thought, "This is amazing." And he went, "Oh, it's lovely." I went, "Thank you very much. I'm amazing." I'm just superb. I'm amazing. I took a picture of his godson. Oh, I'm amazing. Look at me. Look at me. I am incredible. Put them online and they got rinsed. Why? Because I had photoshopped them so poorly. I've kept them on my Flickr. If you want to go deep dive, go find them. That Flickr, God, how old am I? And I got rinsed, mate. I got rinsed. Everyone's like, "What have you done? Why is the colour like this? Why is this grey toned? Why is it like this?" And I was humbled. I had gone from this massive high because this guy said they're amazing. In hindsight, he was just saying that to be polite. I'd stopped his day to take a photograph. Now, I've always been quite ballsy. I have no problem in asking people if they want their portrait taken, and I also have no problem being rejected because everyone has a right to that. But honestly, I I thought I was amazing. Now, I got humbled because people said it was awful and told me why it was awful, right? But when I speak to people in the beginning of their career now, I'm going to use the word amateur. I don't really like the word amateur. I've said this a few times. I prefer the word fledgling, the idea that people are going to grow and get better like birds do, right? But let's just use amateur because that's the one that everyone refers back to. So we're using amateur. People don't want to be told. They don't. They don't want it. They ask for the advice, but they only want the nice advice. Okay. Now you could call something called the shit sandwich, which I don't know if this gets me chucked off the podcast, but the shit sandwich is like you say something constructive that's nice, nicely done. You say the bad thing, and then you say the nice thing to finish. So they, and so it makes them feel better. And it's a very common trait people use, and I still use this day. When someone asks me, "Hey, can I speak to my boyfriend?" Well, he's got lovely hair. He's a little arrogant, but what a nice car he's got. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like this, yeah. Obviously, by the way, Jodie, your boyfriend's lovely. Okay, he's very lovely. He's very tall. I don't like the fact he snorts when he laughs, because he does it deliberately to annoy me. But he has got a lovely pair of shoes on yesterday. Yeah, I'm joking. Jodie doesn't exist. I'm just being a douchebag here. Um, I just wanted to highlight the point. And yet, I don't want to say that amateurs. I still hate that word. Fledgling just seems so much more me to say. Amateurs, I don't know if it's a sense of ego or self-righteousness. Critique can sometimes feel to them like a personal attack instead of professional guidance, and they cling to a style because, and I'll be honest, sometimes it's quite sloppy. Like they don't stop and pause. They have this digital camera. They're like, oh yeah, that one of them would be great. And they stick to it and they keep repeating it. There's a photographer in this beginners photography group I'm in that reposts the same picture. Okay, and everyone says to him, no, you need to do this to get better lighting. This, and he's adamant it's amazing. And I'll be blunt, it's not. And I don't mean it's not a little bit. It's really not. And as a client, if I had had those pictures, I would be quite upset. But he actually said that the client wanted a refund. She's wrong. I refuse. Like all this, it's not nice. I also am going to touch on a little bit on gender dynamics. Okay, and I know. Can I say this? This is only. How do I put this politely without causing an? It's very suspicious. A specific type of person that gets all this. There are some people who cannot stomach being corrected by women. I could share, if this wasn't a podcast, maybe I'll do it on a YouTube channel at some point, or maybe I'll share them on my YouTube community post. There was a critique in one of these photography groups, and I offered some critique, and I was not harsh. I really pulled back, okay? And I offered some videos for further learning, right? I was like, hey, they were doing something, I think it was high speed sync, and I offered the photo. And then he went out of his way to send me a message to tell me how freaking awful I was and that I had no right. And it's always women trying to tell men what to do. And I was like, the irony is it's supposed to be men telling women. That's why there's a term called mansplaining. I'm not going to reference it, but he kept going. And I said, okay, fine, no worries, it's fine. And then for 4 days, without any response from me, this man just kept going at me. He didn't go to my work to critique it. He just kept going at me about the fact I'd critiqued his work. When I went back to his picture, there was about 32, 33 comments from other people, 2 from women. So I messaged one of them and said, hey, did you critique and get, she went, oh my God, I got so much from him. And then I asked one of the men, no, I didn't get anything. So I was like, okay, it's definitely a thing about us. Okay. He went on and on about it. All right. I'm going to tell you something else, which I've told this story numerous times. I was here at Armed Forces Day. Was it Armed Forces Day? Remembrance Day? Armed Forces. It was Remembrance Parade here in Northampton. I was there with my amazing friend Stu Vincent. I was there with Kirsty's a photographer for the press. Who else did I have with me? Paul was there. Paul Lawrence. Anyway, we're all stood there, right? We're all stood there, and we're chatting away. And what it is, it's become almost like a tradition that I will hold a space right by me because I always get this angle of the what do you call them? the dignitaries as the people march past, right? And I always do it every year. I'm always hired by a magazine to photograph it. But once I finish photographing what I need for them, I go to this spot and I hold that space for my friends who are on press um jobs, who are photographing for the council, whatever, yeah. And I hold that space. Anyway, this gentleman who I know, and I know that the people who are around, in fact, I think Stu will remember this story quite well, went to the front and he had his little camera and I don't want to diminish him, he wasn't a little camera, he had a camera. And we're all cleared to be there, okay? And he is not. And I just said to him, "Hey, do you mind moving out the way? Because this is the space." And like there was 3 photographers literally running to get to this space, right? And this guy stepped in, and it is not for people who aren't cleared. So please understand, I'm not like trying to guard a space. As in, like, no one can be here at all because I've decided it's a designated space and you have to be cleared to be stood there, right? Also, where he was stood, the parade would literally smash into him, right? Which is why I'm nooked into a corner. And he started talking about photographers. And he said, "Oh, women can't make good photographers." And I was like, "Sorry, what do you mean?" And bear in mind, there's me, I'm female, and there was Kirsty. He goes, "Because you just haven't got the technical brain." And I thought he was joking. And I went, "That's really funny." He goes, "No, it's true. It's a well-known fact." And he just looked at me deadpan in the face. Women can't make good photographers. They don't have a technical brain. They don't have the technical knowledge and capacity to learn to be photographers. That's what he said to me. And I thought this was absolutely a joke. But to the point when I looked at Stu exasperated and walked away because he knew I would say something. Like, people know that. And I just said to him, "You need to jog on, mate, and get the F out of my space." And he laughed his way back. He thought he was the dog's bollocks. This is the same man who has caused numerous problems in the community by behaving appallingly, like appallingly. So I have very little respect for him anyway. I know it's that, please, I know you're going to judge me on that, but I don't. I find very little common ground with this man. And he does, and his work is honestly, and even if it's not me being a douchebag, it just is what it is, and it is okay. I know you're gonna hate me. It's one guy, and I can't do it. But it's happened a few times. I've said many stories on this. But equally, I have women behave like this. It doesn't really matter. But this is some of the times where the gender dynamic has been quite there. Okay. I also think how I also think that dopamine and social media has a lot to play, and it's like it tricks the brain to thinking you've been validated as a pro. I've just done a podcast episode on this. It is a drug. Dopamine is a very addictive thing, and it makes people think running a business is simply about posting. The amount of times when I'm doing mentoring and people are like, "Okay, Khandie, so why can't I get clients?" I'm like, "Okay, so who are your ideal clients?" Anybody. That's not an ideal client. That's not an ideal client. Waitrose know who their client is. Sainsbury's know who their client base is. You cannot. They are very specific. Harrods know who their client base is. Liberty of London know who their. Do you know what I mean? You have to know who your client is. And even though you tell people this, they just go, "No, it's everybody. I want to photograph everybody." But do you? Do you have the skill set right now to photograph high fashion campaigns for Gucci? Well, no, right. So it's definitely not high-end fashion brands that you're going for. Oh, yeah, but I want to. Yeah, right. Yes, you can change. You see what I mean? Like, people just think running a business is I post a pretty picture and suddenly I get clients. I've had this numerous times where I've done mentoring and people are like, "Well, I keep posting and I'm not getting you work." But you're posting with no call to action. You're posting with no relevance to what's going on in the world, what season we're in, how the shopping's going, what people are doing with their lives. You're posting just pretty pictures with zero strategy of how to convert that into a sale. Okay. Now I do I do mentoring, and this is one of the things that really comes up. I don't know how to make money. I can't know. And the thing is, you do know how to make money if you sat down and started looking and researching. You could do all this. You don't need a mentor for this technically. You could go on YouTube. I literally have videos on this. Okay. And then when you go, "I don't understand that," you can research further. But people don't. So they come to a mentor to get it straight away and they can ask questions. I love that. I love mentoring. But people don't look at the business side. What they see is the likes. They see people on social media running off these far off worlds, getting loads of brand deals or what they think is great brand deals and getting all this free stuff. And suddenly there is somebody. We are chasing that dopamine. And even though we know from our own experiences that life is not like that, we refuse to accept that is the reality for these amazing people. We think that somehow they are just chucked in and they have all this beautiful stuff and they get to do what they want. And it was all just so easy. So why isn't it for us? We've posted a picture of a swan on a river. Why are we not working for National Geographic? My mum says this is a great picture. And I think that's a lot to do with it as well. So I don't know. Maybe this is a great discussion point. Have you seen this? Has this happened with you? I want to know. I also think people don't want to listen because taking critique is really hard. It's really hard to admit that you don't know. You feel like you've lost a sense of status. You've put this beautiful picture up in your head and someone's gone, well, the horizon's wonky. So if you correct it, they're not saying the image is crap, but in your head, you go, well, they think the image is crap. They think I'm crap. And it's this horrible sort of imposter syndrome starts to eke in. Taking critique and not criticism. Criticism is not nice, okay? Critique is when they show you how to improve. If someone goes, well, it's crap, that's criticism, get rid of it. That's noise, that's crap, just get rid of it. When someone says, oh, if you straighten up the horizon and maybe if you pop a little bit of contrast in, it'll really pop off. That's critique. That's helping you improve. Now, you can choose to do that or not. You can choose to do half of that information and not. But people feel like when they get critique sometimes that it's like admitting themselves, oh, I didn't know that, and everyone else knows that. That makes me look embarrassed. Right? Clients also when they says, all right, how do I say this delicatly? Your mum or your loved ones love you and love everything you do because they see potential in you. Okay. They see what you're capable of. They know that you've worked hard all that week and you've done this pretty picture and you've gone out. They love that about you. So they're loving that. They're loving it because you put it up. They're maybe not loving it because it's groundbreaking photography, but they're loving it because you put it up. Clients don't care about that. They care about results. Okay. I don't know how else I can say this. Clients don't care about your sob story. It's great marketing. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not diminishing it as a sob story, but it's just the media term for it all. But clients want results. They want a headshot that's perfectly done that represents them good. You know, they want to look snatched. They want to look powerful in that headshot or whatever the context of the headshot is. They don't want to know that you were up all night because you were nervous and you came in and then you do the shot and you're like, okay, I messed up, but I had a really rough night last night. Like, I don't want to be horrible. They've paid for a service. So clients aren't going to come back if they don't get the service or the quality they think they're due. Your parents will be really proud of you because they know you had a rough time and you got up and you did your job. And they'll be like, well done, honey, well done. And I know that makes me really heartless, but when you're in business, you are offering a service to those people, right? I see many people on social media slating a business if they don't get what they paid for or don't get treated the way they want to get treated, right? That you need to think like that. Okay. If you were your client and you didn't get what you paid for and you didn't get the service that you wanted, why can't they be angry like you would be angry if BA had done it to you? Like why? You need to start thinking about your clients more than you think about how you as an individual feels. I know it's a really horrible thing to do, but if you can't adhere to the client request and the client expectation that you are setting or what you have projected or allowed the client to have, then you don't run it as a business. You go back to being a hobbyist and you don't take paid work and you do it for fun. Okay. We're allowed to change this up. We're allowed to take breaks from our business. But what I mean is you cannot go out there and turn a hobby into a business if you haven't even got the basics done. And I've done this in a podcast before. Not every hobbyist needs to turn into a business. It's a very popular episode. Go listen back to that. Okay. Go listen to it because I think I say it more delicately and more with more intent of what I was trying to get across than I do here. But so many people think because someone says they do a great picture, that automatically makes them a business. It doesn't. That's the same with this whole business overnight. She's got a business overnight. They see the highlight reels online, not the 10 years of slog behind the scenes. People see me, right? I'm saying people see me. I'm sure no one sees me. I've got a podcast. I've got 2 top-selling books on Amazon. I am a brand ambassador for the BIPP. I work with Kate's Backdrops. I go on all these brand things. I get sent products, right? What you don't see is the over a decade of me being a nobody, right? And feeling like I can never do this. You don't see the months, years ago where I could barely pay my bills. You don't see me where I sold a lens to pay a bill. You don't see me when I was crying because I lost a friend and I had to go to work that day because it was a wedding and my friend had gone and I was broken and I had to show up and be all smiles because I had to go to work. Right? And I know everyone's got a sob story. You know, I'm very lucky that it's just me. I just have my dogs, okay? But I literally found out my dog died in front of me. I should put a trigger on that. My dog died in front of me. I had to get to the vet, take her there, leave her there, and then that evening go to a photo shoot because I couldn't cancel it because this client had only this time and had paid me the money. And because I don't spend the money until I've done the job, but I needed the money from that job to pay for my dog, right? Because the insurance is you pay out the excess. Yeah, okay. And this was years, and it was awful, right? I'm gonna cry. Right? I have had that. I have been burnt out. I have done stuff, but equally, I want to tell you, I've seen people who I have loved and adored ruin their business so badly. Okay, I have seen people who I did a let's not did a wedding, right? And I've spoken about this. It was on my I think I put it on my TikTok actually, and I might have put it on my Instagram. I did a wedding where a content creator did not show up. Right? She told them the night before she couldn't come along. They didn't hire a videographer because they one they didn't want to because they had this content creator, but they didn't hire anyone. They hired this content creator, and she just backed out last minute. Right? And they were devastated. And I said, let me see what I could do. Maybe I can do some videos for you. I tried to step in. I can only do a few videos. I wasn't amazing. My heart broke for them because they had paid this person content and she hadn't showed up. Not only that, she didn't refund them for another 20 something days. They put her on blast. And because you didn't show up at someone's wedding, she lost bookings. People were, and she was going on and on about, people understand that I had a bad time that week. It doesn't matter. I know it's always, I go back to that thing. If you offer a service, you need a contingency plan. Okay. I know things happen at short notice, but she said, oh, I can't come the night before. I think she messaged them at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. Their wedding was due to start at 7 o'clock. She was meant to be there at 7 o'clock the next morning. That's not even 12 hours notice. Do you know what I mean? Like, something serious could have happened. I know, but she offered no explanation. And I mean, it's awful. It's awful. Like, you have to be so careful. There are people who do loads of cheap weddings. There's actually a photographer that's in the scam group that the name keeps coming up. Offers loads of weddings really cheap. Sends somebody who's like his associate in. The associate does the work. No one checks the quality of the associate's work. The associate doesn't release the images until he gets paid by the main guy. The main guy isn't paying them, so the bride and groom don't get any. And it just snowballs and it gets massive. Not only is the reputation of the associate damaged because the bride and groom like, well, I've paid, I want my images. And their associate's having to go, but I've not been paid, so I can't release them. Like, but I've paid, give me what I want. You need to chase that with the other guy. It all just made a big mess. It's just made a huge mess. And everyone is just fighting amongst themselves. It's awful. It's awful. There's also that one on TikTok about the lady who shot loads of weddings and then disappeared without sending anyone. And then for months and months, no one could get hold of her. She reappeared under a different name. I'm going to say claiming all of these different things. I have to be very delicate because I don't want to like sound like I don't believe certain things. Despite people saying to her, send us the hard drives, we'll sort it out, we'll send you hard drives. Someone else, she refused. Eventually people got images, but it just went on for years. Okay. Damage is destroyed. No one's gonna be, even her account where she had quite a big following relatively for this new persona she had, destroyed, completely destroyed. Okay. People don't want to listen, and it's not necessarily because they are stubborn, it's because no one likes to be told that they're in the wrong or that what they're really proud of isn't something to be as proud of in a professional capacity, which is just, I don't know if I even said that right. I don't think is that how you say it? Okay. But there's also a massive fallout in the industry. So many underskilled pros, in inverted commas, drag down the prices because they don't understand the cost of doing business. They don't understand how to price themselves. Like, I literally see it in the Facebook groups where people will go, oh, I'm doing a headshot session. How much should I charge? And they're like, well, what are the parameters? What do you mean? Well, what are the headshots for? Their business. What's their business? How many headshots are they wanting? How long's the session? Where do you live? What are your costs? And they've got no answers. So they just pick a number out the sky. I saw a headshot session, 15 images, 30 quid on a notice board in the area that I live in. Shocking, isn't it? That's shocking. Clients get burned by this. They lose trust with photographers because they haven't had a great experience in the first one. I had a lady come to me because she had some branding shots done and didn't enjoy them. She said that they were not her, they didn't fit her briefing. She was very unhappy, and she's a solicitor, and she just said it just wasn't good. And so she said that she just didn't feel like the photographer understood. So she came to me, but it took a lot to get her to trust me and to relax. Okay. Because every time someone books a half-baked pro and gets crappy results, that client is harder to win back, and it poisons the well for the rest of us. Okay. That's not to say you can't do crappy results and not be a pro, right? You can be a pro and do crappy results. What I mean is, if you turn something into a business, it needs to at least fit the basic parameters, right? It has to be in focus. You have to have contracts. You have to have a decent price. Okay. You can improve your lighting setup. You can improve your quality of camera. All of that can improve with time. But if you're handing out yellowed images with no eye and focus and calling it a headshot and then charging people, and people aren't happy about the results, it's causing problems. Okay. Now, I also want to say, because it feels like a pile on amateurs. Again, I prefer the term fledglings. Not all are like this. There are some who have utterly blown me away. Not just because they've listened and they graft and they seek critique, but because their work from the start is fantastic. Fantastic. There is a young lad here. I think he's left to go to uni in Nottingham now, in Northampton. His work was beautiful. Beautiful. It was very it had a unique style. It was very now, very current. It wasn't necessarily like classic portraits. It was more how to say, stylized. It was stunning, right? The downside for him is he couldn't make it work because he would spend so long editing it, but wouldn't charge to cover that time, and he ended up being unable to make clients and make cost. And he ended up any time management anyway. He ended up going to university anyway, and he's now, I think he's doing a business management course or something like that. He said, it's probably seems like far more advanced. He's super intelligent, and he's doing photography just as a hobby now. He says, I'll probably come back to it later, but I realized I messed up. But do you know what? His work was incredible. If he just got the business side down, he would have soared. He was incredible, and he asked for advice, and he got advice, and he started to implement it. But then he realized he had to go to uni, and he just didn't have the time. But he was so good. Okay. But I also want everyone to remember, we all started somewhere. We all have terrible photos of a green gross like I have. We have photos of things that we're not proud of. Humility is what separates future pros from the ones who will burn out. You have to accept that you are still learning. I'm still learning. I literally go on courses to still learn. And I still keep up and watch certain YouTube creators because I want to learn more, and I'm hungry for new education. And I put that down, the education side, as part of my business model. I spend time self-learning. It's actually in my plan every week to watch certain things and to read certain things. I'm signed up to certain newsletters that are for these actual places for me to learn, because I read them. I want to learn about them. I have Google Trend alerts set up for certain things that I want to learn about. I have that in my business plan. I think everyone else should. Okay. So I think it also, I don't think there's anything wrong with getting mentoring. I love mentoring people. I had a guy come through recently who's an estate photographer, and he wanted to know how to use flash better when he's doing estate photography. We sat there, and it was just some basics we went over, and he sent me back his latest ones, and they have vastly improved. He's doing better. It was something as simple as lowering the tripod, because he's an incredibly tall gentleman, lovely gentleman, very tall, in fact. I think he stood over 6'5", and he was shooting at his height. He needed to lower it down. If you shoot at that height, you're making everything look smaller. He needed to shoot down. We needed to talk about how the inverse square law works. We needed to look about flash and how to work with flash. And suddenly, after an hour and 50 minutes, his work had improved exponentially. It was fantastic. And he said he'd gone from spending over 2 hours shooting a property to like less than 30 minutes, and he's out the door. With time, that will get faster. But you see now, that's fantastic. He knew what he wanted to do, and he's fantastic, and he's doing so well. Okay. There is nothing wrong with asking for advice. And I think what's happened is the world has made people who are starting off in business, in any line of business, we get this, it's not just for purely photography, we get it in everywhere. People post a pretty picture of an outfit and think they're an influencer. An influencer is someone who actually has measurable influence. Like, you can look at their metrics and see that people have bought that product because of their photo. Do you know what I mean? But we've just kind of made this idea that everything is now an instant, and if someone likes it, that makes you viable. It doesn't, as a business sense. It might as a person, it might make you, but as a business, it doesn't necessarily. Okay. So that's probably why all of this episode, I don't know if I've said it right. I keep going on this. That might be why amateur photographers, fledgling photographers, which I prefer, it might be why they aren't wanting to take advice, but a lot of them do. A lot of them do. And some just won't be told because they don't take criticism, critique, whatever, very well. Okay. And that's a personal thing with them because we should all be open to critique. I get it. I get lots from running a podcast. I get told I talk too fast. So I've tried to slow down because I am a naturally fast speaker. Okay. I've always been a fast speaker and I know it's a thing I've got, but I try to slow down. Okay. I try my hardest. And sometimes I don't manage it. And people say, oh, I think someone said to me the other day, my first couple of episodes sounded like I was on crack. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I get excited. I get nervous. And it just, blah, 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 that's what happens. So I've tried really hard to slow this down. Okay. There are times when I'm going to mess up and I apologize. But I try because I took that criticism and that critique on board and tried to improve myself. Okay. It's same with my YouTube videos. I've tried to get better with them because I want people to see the growth. I'm not an instant overnight success. I'm not a success right now, but I'm someone who's desperately trying to make this my thing. I've got a podcast. I've got the 2 books. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got the Instagram. I've got the, I'm trying. And the thing is, I enjoy that part. I enjoy trying things out. So here's the truth. If you can't be told, you won't last, my darlings. Your mates' compliments don't pay your bills, and social media likes do not build a business. And your ego will not win you repeat clients. But what will is humility, work ethic, and the ability to take critique and actually apply it and self-learn. So to any amateur, I prefer to call you fledglings, my love, because I don't think I would hope that no one listening to this episode falls into this category. But this was a specially requested episode. I was given examples of. I haven't used those examples because they were shocking. Mainly because I think it was very easy to identify who the people were who had done this. So I just kind of left this loose. So if you are a fledgling listening, don't get defensive. I want you to prove me wrong. I want you to adapt, do the work, and then you can call yourself a pro. You don't have to earn that right. I hate that idea that you have to earn the right to call you a pro. But a pro is someone who is constantly evolving. They're professional. They constantly learn. If you have an episode that you'd like me to cover, go jump onto the Facebook group, which is called The Loud Lens with Khandie, or you can message me on any of the social medias and we can chat or not chat. Just send me an idea. It's great. Some of the greatest episodes have come from ideas from you guys. But I want to ask you, have you seen a photographer jump into pro work way before you thought they were ready? And what is the most Dunning-Kruger moment you've witnessed in photography? I want you to share those stories, tag me on socials, because as always, this is The Loud Lens, where we say what others are too polite to say. I cannot wait to catch up with you in a few episodes' time, because I'm not sure when we'll do the next one. But go listen to some of my other episodes, and I am so happy you're here. And as you notice, I'm talking slower.